I don't think our guests need an introduction, but in case you don't know, this is General Retired Austin Scott Miller, and this is Ms. Cathie Wood. Their bios are in your program. We've got about an hour together, so I say we just go ahead and get started. Lightning round to get to know you both a little bit better. Sir, what are you watching right now?
Am I allowed to say hello to everybody?
Absolutely, yes. You do whatever you like.
You know, it's quite an interesting crowd out here, so I think I'm going to get some time afterwards with some of my friends from Afghanistan when we finish up here. But it's great to see all of you. I caught the tail end of the last panel. I heard a story of, you said you threw Jessica in a ditch and you climbed over her, George. Is that what I heard you saying? But so I caught that. So that seemed to be a really strong panel. In all seriousness, and you looked really good too, George. I'll get back to the lightning round here real quick. What am I watching? Nothing too heavy. I'm not into anything real deep. Transition's kind of deep enough by itself. So I'm watching Longmire. I'm binging on Longmire. Okay,
it's a fantastic show.
I watch that. It's somewhat safe, although it has some strange episodes too. Okay.
Kathy, what are you reading or listening to right now?
Oh, I was prepared for what are you watching? I'm not really good on lightning round questions. So what I watched, since I don't watch movies and I don't watch TV, at least right now, I did on the plane catch The Darkest Hour by Winston Churchill, early days of World War II. That was fascinating. I love biographies and nonfiction. So listening to, in terms of podcasts, we have a series. I have to listen to our podcasts. They're called FYI, For Your Innovation.
Nice.
And because our firm, ARK Invest, is focused exclusively on innovation, disruptive innovation. So keeping up with those, and we've just started a private-public crossover fund, so we're getting more private companies, and it's pretty exciting.
Great, so that's something for all of us to tune into. Who is your leadership example, Kathy?
My leadership example, and I did intend to be quite spontaneous with these questions. You know, I have to reflect, again, because of the world I'm in, on the companies in our portfolios and the kind of vision that some of the management teams have. In the genomic space, most of you aren't going to know these people. Christian Henry at Pacific Biosciences, which is taking on Illumina, the gorilla in the DNA sequencing space. He used to work there, and now all the talent is flowing to PacBio, and it's a beautiful thing. It's very interesting because he's a great leader. He's a great leader. He's, world-changing. This one will be known for our Tesla investment, and Elon Musk has his antics, but talk about a visionary transforming the world, whether it is autonomous mobility, including space exploration and populating Mars. Because I've met him a number of times and watched his seriousness of purpose. Many people don't see that if they're looking at Twitter. But if you interview him and understand how seriously he's taking his role on this planet, and what an incredible scientist, engineer, developer he is, I think he's our Renaissance man. And if you talk about leadership, what is the one company in the world that engineers want to work for? They want to work for Tesla. They do. He's solving the hardest problems. And he's a very hard taskmaster, but everyone involved has incredible job satisfaction when they get the job done.
Speaking of leaders who inspire others to come and work for them, General Miller is one of those leaders. So, sir, who is your leadership example?
It's not Elon. And it's that was before his latest tweet, which He probably wishes he could get that one back. But the
Which one, Twitter?
no, Russia. You know, how he's going to solve the Russian
Elon.
conflict. Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Take care of that, Cathie.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, I've had great leadership over the years, and when you think of leadership, you think of up and above you. You know, you think of the Stan McChrystals, the Bill McRavens, the John Lewis, my battalion commander. So that you always kind of think in that direction. But how about if I told you, like, when you start looking for your inspiration, and you sort of knew it while it was there. It's actually the people that you work with, or in some cases they work for you. And there's in this phase now, you know, what starts really pleasing me is seeing people actually like Michelle, Chris Donahue, Jim Rainey, who will be promoted later today, Rob Snyder as he's going off and doing things. But watching people that you've had the opportunity to work with kind of get ready to go step into the leadership of the military. And so they become what I would call your inspiration at this point. And I'm not negative on Elon. I find him quite interesting. It's just, yes. He's going to say something all the time. So.
Yes.
Cathie, what's your proudest professional achievement?
Starting ARK. It was a walk of faith, literally. I knew I was called to do this, and I knew if I didn't do it, and I started the company when I was 57, so I knew if I didn't do it, that I would have failed in a way, in terms of the reason I was put here.
Thank you. Sir?
You've heard me say some things before. When you start looking at your over time, I'll just share the story here with the group here. When I was interviewed for the Afghan job, I did not think I was going to be assigned as the commander for Afghanistan. A guy named Secretary James Mattis, you know, called me in, and he had kind of this crazy interview technique, which some of you people have seen before. It's behavioral interview techniques. He knew, okay, I get where you're going with this thing. But when he asked me, he goes, okay, what was your best assignment? And I said, well, it was Fort Benning, Georgia. Now, you know, he's kind of looking at me going, what? You know, you commanded Delta, you're commanding JSOC, you got to do this, you got to do that. And he said, why Fort Benning, Georgia? And I said, well, first of all, I said, I got to go back to the Army. It had been quite a long time since I'd really been with the Army. And then I talked to him about the Ranger School experience, which was painful, by the way, too. It wasn't one of these that you just walk through, but it represented some change. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm referring to the Army's decision to allow women to attend the U.S. Army Ranger School. And we went through quite a process, and in August of 2015, 2 graduates came out of that course. One of them's here. I don't think Shay is here. Chris is here. And it really, you know, that was a proud moment for me, not because I carried them through Ranger School or I did anything different. It was that we were, as a community, Fort Benning community, able to manage pretty controversial change. And I think anytime you can work through some controversial change and you learn something as you go through it, and you know in your heart that it's right. I mean, that's the other piece of this thing. You don't just change for change sake. But I think you can now look at the record of the school and see where women have moved since then. But it took that initial piece in there. So that was what I thought was a pretty proud moment in my military career. And really, you know, not done by me, executed by some pretty stalwart soldiers.
Sir. Cathie, you mentioned you don't watch television, so I will punt this over to General Miller instead, but best and worst Game of Thrones characters.
Best, Ned Stark, Jon Snow. Worst, Cersei. What's the blonde-haired girl's name that went crazy on us at the end?
Daenerys. I knew you were going to say that.
So I mean, you know, I don't know, that sounds a little, I went with 2 male characters.
I didn't know that's the direction it would go, but.
Yeah, so there's some goodness across the genders there, so don't anybody, you like Jon Snow, though.
I do love Jon Snow. Who doesn't love Jon Snow? Okay, sir, so getting into a little bit deeper.
You didn't ask me what I was listening to, what I was reading.
Please.
You hit Cathie up.
Please.
Yeah.
Go for it. What are you reading right now?
Let me throw one out here. It's completely different, and it's a function of being able to look at something different after retirement. I'm reading now about the metaverse, and going back into your world. There's actually there's many things you can read on the metaverse. One of them is how the metaverse will revolutionize everything. And as part of that, where I'm trying to get a little smarter is on the gaming industry. And I don't play games, all right, which bothers me that I don't play online games, because I recognize when the gaming industry can tell you they have 1 billion users, and I'm not one of them, I'm missing out on what 1 billion people are, where they're starting to form opinions, how life will start looking at, where information will come from in the future, where money will, be exchanged. And it's a place where I think, what bothers me is my generation, I think, will completely miss it unless we force ourselves into that environment. So that's what I'm.
Can I just add something?
Please.
I love that answer. When I have 3 children, and when they were in school, it was a Montessori school, and gaming forbidden. And I saw my girls didn't care about it, but my son did. And I watched him, and he played a lot of war games, actually, a lot of history there. But I watched, and I see today what it did for him. And I told the Montessori team this. Much more decisive, wonderful strategic thinker, great hand-eye coordination, and collaboration. So I agree with you. I agree our generation doesn't quite get it.
Right. How about did anybody go to typing class when they were growing up? I went to typing class. And I think I got up to 35 words a minute or something.
It's amazing.
My kids never went to typing class, and they can probably type 75, 80 words a minute. People are learning foreign languages in these environments. And so when you start thinking about that they're not going to school, they're immersed in an environment where they're learning to speak a foreign language, English or whatever the predominant language is in there. There's just a lot going on in there, and I think we're going to have to pay attention to it, our generation.
So what I take away from that is the next time my niece and nephews beg me to play video games, I should just let
Play
them
station.
because they'll be more decisive later. All right, so you started West Point in
Yes.
1979, the year of my birth. It was only 3 years earlier that women were allowed to start attending this prestigious institution. And you, of course, mentioned that your proudest achievement was overseeing the integration of women. You've been an Army infantry officer, but also a special operations leader multiple times over. Can you just tell us a little bit about your experiences working alongside women? When did that start?
Yeah, I can. First off, I'm a typical 18 to 22-year-old kid going through West Point. Personally, I don't think we treated women well at the military academy. I just don't. It ranged from bad behavior, really kind of, I'm going to trip people out of here because they don't belong here, to indifference, to, somebody who was probably more enlightened. And I would say they were, and I talk about males, they're probably in the minority at that point. And it was just you're a product of what you had, who you were, how you had grown up. And, but I'll tell you this today, when I look at my West Point classmates, and I like them all, the women are the most squared away people in my class. And I'm not just saying that. When I go out, when I go back, and Mimi's seen them too, when you go back and you see them and you get a chance to talk to them, some of the guys are pretty squared away too, but some of them have just kind of drifted off in like some weird directions, and the women are really strong. And I find them to be strong and rational thinkers too, if that's a way to put it. And I just say that because I think that I missed an opportunity there to really understand it. And so then I went in the infantry. In the infantry, you didn't see women, okay? It was just, you didn't. Maybe you saw somebody who was, in one of the logistic units that would come over and support you. And it wasn't until I got so that's basically 1983, really until 1992. You saw women, but you didn't really work with them because there was none in the infantry, and certainly weren't any in the Ranger battalions. What I saw when I got to the Special Operations community was, one, a pretty enlightened community. And by enlightened, its mindset was you use every tool available. You don't just say, this is the only way to solve a problem. You look for everything that's out there that's available. And I was introduced to women in Special Operations community. And in fact, watching them as, they had their challenges too, trying to break into this community. But watching them and watching what they were able to do, quite frankly, in wartime environments and wartime activities, when somebody asks me, what do you think about women going to Ranger School, I go, why not? I already know that women can do the job, and they can do the really hard jobs. And maybe not every woman, but every guy can't either. And so I didn't really have a problem with it. So that 92 on is when I started getting a little bit smarter about, it's the entire population, not just half the population that's required to solve problems. So.
Thank you. Cathie, George Fraser mentioned earlier about the military's struggles when it comes to recruiting. And you've taken a really unique approach to talent management at ARK. Many of the people at ARK don't have what we would consider like a traditional financial services type of background. You've said, and I will read this so that I don't misquote you, you've said it's much easier to teach a biochemical engineer how to read financial statements than it is to teach an MBA biochemical engineering. And that the people who do not end up working well in our firms are those who think they have to know everything. Mm-hmm. That's just not an honest or a realistic way of approaching our world. Mm-hmm. There are some people that are academically oriented who cannot take the day-to-day stress. So when I'm thinking about the special ops world, we deal with quite a bit of day-to-day stress. Mm-hmm. So I'd like your thoughts on, one, what do you look for when you're recruiting talent? And then a follow-on would be, how do you test for that adaptability, for that humility, for that resiliency?
So in terms of our recruiting process, I have found the most successful way for us to recruit is to have those who are going to be their teammates start the process. And we have a very, we have a wonderful culture at ARK, and I think everyone wants to preserve it, and so some people who, if on paper, look like, oh my gosh, if it could, well, if it doesn't, that the first test is cultural, mm-hmm. No matter how good they are at what they're doing, right? And most of the people at ARK have said to me, in one way or another, I never thought I would ever work for a financial services firm. The dark side of the earth, right? It was not so far from 08, 09 when we started the company, right? And I said, come and help me change it. Come and help me change it. And it's going to be a hard battle, but if we're right, as the world goes passive and benchmark sensitive and takes the safe route, which I think is extremely dangerous and the most massive misallocation of capital in the history of mankind. If they're wrong, because there is so much disruptive innovation evolving today, if they're wrong and we are right, wait until you see what happens. So everyone's a shareholder, gave them stock right away. That's critically important. Make them owners. And feel very accountable and responsible for working with each other. The other thing is becoming more important over time. Certainly metaverse brings what I'm about to say to life. Multidisciplinary, very, very important. The ability to think across what we call sectors in the financial industry. So our analysts are technology specialists, but they are sector generalists. And so what we're looking for are, big ideas. They're going to go from early stage to mass market and mega cap. So it's very difficult to find people because of the way because of their comfort zones. What I find is there's a lot of self-selection. People like what they are reading. We give all of our research away. And it's almost a recruitment tool because people become so interested in what we're doing and what we're thinking about transforming the world, making it a better place. Especially the younger people today, they want a mission, they want a purpose, they don't want just a job. And so the cultural part has to do with collaboration and being able to work on projects together as opposed to the traditional financial services world where Tesla would have represented a massive turf warfare instead of, the battery expert and the AI expert and the software as a service expert working together to come up with an autonomous mobility model. It's a big idea, and one person can't do it anymore because of the convergences between and among technologies.
Thank you for that. Sir, building a bit off of what Cathie just talked about, you were commissioned in 1983, so you had already served in the Army for almost 2 decades before 9/11 happened. But the global war on terror, of course, saw a very rapid and substantial increase in the number of people who ended up joining the military, but very specifically the special operations community. So as our interim national security strategy, as our national defense strategy have pivoted us quite a bit away from the counter-VEO mission, the CT mission, we will still have to do those things, but as we continue to focus more and more on our peers and your peers, touching on what Cathie talked about, we're hearing many junior members of the community feeling like they've lost out on the opportunity to go to war, that they don't have the same purpose or the same mission that their predecessors have had. What are your thoughts on this mindset as someone who has seen a lot of war?
That's a big question. What are my thoughts? This audience, I'm looking out here, a lot of familiar faces. Obviously, not many people in this room missed out on the war. They got to participate it either through it one way or the other. And we all have to remember when we first started out. As a lieutenant and a captain, all I wanted to do was go somewhere and get shot at. I didn't care who it was. Wasn't really concerned about national objectives or anything else. Just wanted to go ply my craft somewhere. And ideally you have leaders right above you that learn how to quell that appetite just a little bit, so we don't get too nonsensical in our approach here. Like you said, I joined in 1983, or actually came on active duty in 1983. I missed Panama. I purposely went to Korea to stay away from Fort Hood because I knew nothing was ever going to happen at Fort Hood. So then I missed Desert Storm. And I missed Panama because I had gone to the advanced course. I missed Grenada because I was too late coming in. And so by the time 1991 or 92 rolled around, I was pretty convinced I wasn't going to see any fights at all. And that, so I tell people, don't hurry for it. It'll come to you when it's time. Unfortunately, what I just tell people is the world is so unstable right now. We probably haven't seen anything like this. Maybe you have to go 1938, 1939 to see the lack of stability there. And does it mean that they're going to go get into a shooting war? Who knows? It doesn't. We don't know that. But if you're part of the national security apparatus, you have to be prepared to be whatever your nation needs you to be. And that usually means being all about supporting vital national interests. And just my sense is we're not in for a big peace dividend as we go forward there. The other piece of that is, you mentioned the global war on terror is over. Some of you have better insights on this than I do, because I'm really not on the systems. I promise I'm not calling everybody up. Every time I see something on CNN, I surmise what's going on. I figure someone will tell me. I think we saw last night that there was at least a kinetic strike in an operation in Syria last night or the night before, or whatever the timing was. So we know those are still going to go on there. We saw Ayman al-Zawahiri in downtown Kabul. So we know that terrorism is something that's going to stay with us for quite some time. I also believe that, as we transition to this next phase, there's a lot of lessons that have been learned and a lot of carryover. And maybe it's more in principles, but I think some of the tactics, techniques, and procedures also carry over into this next phase. And I know it because I do have long conversations with one of my old majors who now is the 18th Airborne Corps Commander, and he wants to tell me everything he's doing in overseas. And when you talk to him and you really kind of pull it back, he's using a lot of the principles that he grew up learning over the last 20 plus years there. and using them pretty well. So,
Thank you, sir.
uh-huh.
Cathie, you recently founded the Innovation Foundation, which is a nonprofit whose mission is to educate through the lens of technologically enabled innovation, preparing and inspiring students, teachers, and families to be on the right side of innovation. Ashtana Durrani earlier spoke about her efforts to continue educating Afghan girls in the face of the Taliban and how critical technology is to be able to expand the reach of those educational programs. Tell us a little bit more about the gap in education that you're trying to fill in the United States and how the curriculum is focused on building those multiple competencies across multiple disciplines, as you mentioned earlier.
Right. Yes, well, the reason I felt it was very important, first of all, inspired by my father, Irish immigrant, both parents, Irish immigrants, not even a high school education. And because of the military, because of the Irish Army, after his father died, there was no one, went into the Irish Army, and then came to the United States and was drafted immediately for the American Air Force. He knew that technology was going to be his ticket to success, and it was. He became a design engineer on radar systems at the dawn of the electronic age, as he has always told me. And I saw, now, he because of his educational background, he never would have gotten top bulge bracket in the government or anything like that, because he was working mostly for the government. But he was selected to go around the world to places he couldn't tell us. And so that was very fulfilling, you know, and he was able, and he and my mother were able to raise us, you know. So, and I see innovation leveling the playing field generally, and more innovation now, giving us the opportunity to go into the public school system. Many people are doing what we're doing in the private school system. And that's what we thought we had to do as well, until we met former Secretary of Education Corcoran in Florida. Governor DeSantis sent him to St. Pete to, I guess, help us, give us some perspective that Florida would enable us to do this. And so we opened our doors in St. Pete, my ARK's doors, on November last year. We are piloting the 6th grade science curriculum for 1,700 students right now. And the superintendents and the teachers, believe it or not, like it so much, they've asked us to go through the middle school. So our hope here is to proliferate this throughout the United States. So what is it? I'll just use one of the inspirations, saying, no, yes, we have to do this, and we have to do this now. At Jericho Partnership in Danbury, Connecticut, during COVID, I knew the president very well. She said, they run a program for economically disadvantaged children from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. So what am I going to do? You know, we're going to lose these kids. And I said, well, why don't we do some seminars on and teach them about innovation? And so we chose drones for the high school, and we chose 3D printing for the grade school, for 4th and 5th graders. And, you know, in the beginning, these young people, students, would not even show their faces on Zoom. And the question of, why us? Why, you know, they asked the president, and she said, why not you? And so at the end of just these 6-part seminars for each of these, we were able to say, honestly, now you know more about drones than 95% of the people in the United States and the world. Did this inspire you? If it did, then follow on Twitter Sam the Drone Man. Sam is our analyst, right? Follow Sam. And Sam's kind of this cool guy. He was a camp counselor, and so he knows how to work with young people. And people are following Sam the Drone Man. And look at who he follows. Follow them if they inspire you. So taking the initiative, sort of like my father did, right? He taught himself. And I think the young generation today kind of wants to do that they want to explore and investigate, do it yourself, They don't want black boxes, and they don't want to have to memorize and do all the silly things we did. They want to think things through.
Yes.
So, yes, so that's the spirit of it, and we're going in with the 5 major platforms, so sequencing of all kinds, so DNA, RNA, proteins, just curing disease is the objective, and it's happening. Robotics, energy storage, artificial intelligence, and blockchain technology. And involved in those 5 platforms are 14 technologies. And we're starting to break those out now into bite-sized pieces, making them age appropriate for 6th grade to start, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then, we'll see what happens. It's been very interesting. The community's thrilled, but truth be told, because it's the public school system, I don't think anyone feels like they need to contribute to this because there's the public school system. But I don't want the public school system's funds because I don't want them to tell us what to do. Right? It comes with, and just let us see how this works. So I'm willing, just like I was willing to fund ARK for 4 years before someone found us worthy, I'm willing to do this for as long as it takes. And we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Congratulations, Cathie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to follow Sam the Drone Man, too.
Everybody follow
We probably
Sam
should.
the Drone Man
Sam,
right
of
now
course.
on Twitter.
Sam, it's SKORUS if you're on Twitter. ARK. Yeah.
Thank you. This is going to be my last question for General Miller. And so for those of you that may have a question, prepare yourselves because you'll have the opportunity to ask those in a moment. So, sir, you mentioned you've transitioned. You recently joined several boards. What has surprised you about how industry does business? What do you admire? What do you think industry could learn from the military?
So this is not, particularly with Cathie sitting here, she may not agree with me. So I want to say this is not a fully informed opinion. But when you walk in and somebody, usually someone in my position, you get hired to be an advisor. And so you start taking a look at the under the hood a little bit, and you're only going to go so deep based on how deep they want you to go. Because a lot of times they don't want you too deep under the hood. And it's just it's trying to find out what's going on. Many of you have been on these types of teams. The cross-functional team approach, you call it multidiscipline. I'm a firm believer that a cross-functional team, small, agile, could probably do some really serious goodness for different corporations. They're reluctant to employ it. And they're reluctant to employ it, I think, one, because sometimes they're afraid of what they'll find. They don't necessarily buy into the leadership concept. And quite frankly, you're overhead. You're not you don't necessarily can't quantify how an adjustment to culture contributes to the bottom line, how an adjustment to some efficiency contributes to the bottom line. But I've thought this in a couple of people that have, I'm working for them, and I tell them, I go, you don't really need me, you need these 3 people is what you need. And you need them to go walk your lines and help you understand what a campaign might look like. You might call it a business plan in the business world, but they can do this. This is what they do, routinely into really complicated situations. So it's different for me, And Cathie and I actually, so you guys know, we know each other from Florida also.
Yeah.
But so the business world's still a little bit of a mystery to me. Everybody who goes, oh, it's really easy, and they're just going to step right into it. I don't think they're telling you the truth. Okay, it's a little bit different. The culture is going to be a little bit different. If you find a company like Cathie's that focuses on culture, cling to it. ride it. Those are the companies you want to work with. But that's what I'm seeing, Lila. It's just everything's driven by the bottom line, and it's hard for sometimes people to take what might be what you might call leadership, culture, maybe some other values that we would mix in there that you just can't say it's how that show contributes to profit and loss, and they may be hesitant to take it. That's what I'm seeing.
Maybe I inherited this from my father, but I agree with you. I agree with you completely. And in fact, from the youngest associate to the most seasoned advisor, I want pushback, especially in our business. I mean, we all make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, you're not taking enough risk in our business. And so it's really important to understand you will make mistakes. And so how do we mitigate the number of mistakes? And so we have outside, we call them theme developers, and these are people that they are learning from us, but they're also teaching us. And I think it's really important.
Right. But you also, when you're out, you also pay close attention to the economy. I mean, anybody who's still sitting in the service or the government work, you're somewhat, you are recession-proof. I mean, if you're in the government. If you're not in the government, and Cathie can probably tell you this, she's got to be looking at that every day. Every time those rates go up, that means more than just the mortgage rates, is going up. There's other things that are happening that eventually are going to do some things. Hot job market today. We'll see what it looks like 6 months from now with 6 more months of interest rate raises.
I have very strong feelings about this.
I bet you do.
I think the Fed is making a massive mistake, but that's for another panel.
Well, and I should have started off, Cathie, by thanking you for being here, especially because the markets are still open. So it's huge that you are sitting here with us right now as a star picker investor. So thank you for that. From the audience, any questions?
So if you were, is that on?
Mm-hmm.
We can hear you.
The previous panel, I don't know if you caught anything more than the story about Jess falling out of the helicopter, but
There's another story that goes along with that one, too.
But I want to come back to the women in peace and security topic for a minute. As a commander in Afghanistan, we listen to the CFTs and the FTPs talk about their experiences, and in my mind, they get it. They get the impact of having women in these roles and what it can mean for a cultural engagement. But more broadly, your impressions of this whole topic of women in peace and security and where we should be going with this idea. And the UN's interested in it, every department of the federal government's interested in it, but from your perspective, as a commander in Afghanistan, where do you think this whole idea of women in peace and security can go?
Well, it's going to depend, all right? It's going to depend on, the Afghan women know this. That's a tough culture for women. Obviously much tougher now with, Taliban leading the government. But so the culture actually matters, and it's it's part of the acceptance. And I mean, it's the same in the United States too. Remember what I told you, as here I am as an 18 to 22-year-old, not, I would put myself in the indifferent category, not in the activist category, until I grew into it and you start stepping back and you realize, hey, I actually just care about winning and competing really, really well. And so I'm going to use everything. That's, and everything means everything. It doesn't mean, oh, sorry, you're a woman, you can't, you're not part of my toolkit here. I'm only going to look over here for, get things done. So that's a cultural adjustment that has to take place. And it's taken place in some parts of the world. I mean, George didn't talk about, but when we look the Kurds in Syria, the women, they're full-on fighters. And so again, I think it's going to depend on where people are culturally, but where we are, I mean, is the United States, we should be taking a leading role. I firmly believe that. That's my view. And I know that's not universal across even the United States, but that's my viewpoint. You guys have any easy questions for me, by the way, or is this just going to be,
Somebody in the back, too.
yeah?
Uh-oh, sir, I don't think you're going to like this one.
Go ahead, I'll pass it to Cathie.
He's
if I
not
don't
going to
know.
like this one, but I think it's really important for all of us here. So we look at someone like you, Cathie, who started an amazing business at 57. That sounds terrifying to me. And then obviously you serve 4-star commander, the most control one could say in the world. And I think most of us here in the room would say, I can't relate to these people. Let's just be honest. We think that you're superhuman, that you have some kind of incredible gift that you were born with that we don't have. So if you would be willing, I would really appreciate if you would tell us a story about a time that you failed significantly.
This is amazing. I'm glad I didn't have to ask this question. This is amazing.
But most importantly, what you learned from it and how it made you a better human being.
Cathie, why don't you start us off with that?
Okay. No, you know, it's so interesting. As I was growing up and in school, I needed to be a straight A student. I had to be a straight A student. And the best thing that a professor did for me, well, I had him on this pedestal. His name is Art Laffer. I don't know if any of you know him. Laffer curve, supply side economics. And I had him up on this pedestal and literally failed the midterm. Like, I had never failed anything. I had never, and I was just devastated. I didn't know what had happened. I froze, deer in the headlights, because it was a master's program. I was applying it to my undergraduate degree and all that. That's the best thing that happened to me. Absolutely, I was devastated. And, you know, that's, my children are not like I was. I certainly didn't encourage the straight A route because I don't think it's that healthy. But I was determined to turn it was more how I was feeling about myself. Art Laffer, he thought, because I aced the final and all of that, but it kept with me, and he's one of the reasons I gave him stock in my company. He's one of the reasons I think I've built up to starting ARK. It was just like I was going to do something to make him proud. And so, you know, that's one. In terms of investing, in 1994, I was the analyst at the time on foreign securities. It was very strange. Here in the United States, no one wanted to follow foreign securities. Like the rest of the world didn't exist. So, but I did, because we had lived abroad and everything, and sense of adventure and all of that. So I was the analyst on Mexico. And I got to, actually, Art Laffer introduced me to some of his former students there, so I got to know the community and everything. And they were assuring us that they would not devalue the peso. They would not do this in 1994. And it was around Christmas time, they devalued the peso. And I was responsible, singularly, for taking our performance that year, as everybody worships at the holy altar of the benchmark, from outperforming to underperforming. And, you know, it was just like, oh my gosh. But again, I came back fighting, you know, and I think each one of the failures has made me stronger. Failing usually does. So, yeah, you know, in our business, what I love about it, if you're not wrong sometimes, then you're not taking enough risk. And that's a very freeing experience. It's a very freeing experience. Now, some people would look at what's happened recently to us and say, oh, you must feel terrible, because just to give you the background here, COVID, the 1 month before COVID, down 45%. The market was down about 25, we were down about 45. Then I'm in the innovation solves problems mantra on YouTube and all of that. We went up from April of 20 to February of 21, 360%. This is our flagship fund. From then, as inflation and interest rate fears picked up, down 75 basis points to our low in May. And I don't know if that is our low, because, as I said, I think the Fed's making a terrible mistake. Right before coming here, I did a YouTube video talking to the Fed. You're data-driven? Really? Okay, let me give you some data. Anyway, many people will say, you're being very defensive. No, I'm not. This is really for the good of the world, because the rest of the world is suffering because of us, and now the United States is suffering. But anyway, the failures have helped me. This 75% decline, people would say, how can you live with yourself? Because we're long-term investors, we're keeping our eye on the prize. Innovation is going to deliver, we believe, will it's priced in the market at $7 trillion, less than 10% of the market now. We're taking it to $210 trillion, and you can see the building blocks in our Big Ideas 2022, how we get there, by 2030. So keep your eye on the prize. If we're right, and I really believe we are, and you're on the right side of change, whether it's a career, education, or investing, you're going to do very well. So anyway, more than you wanted to hear, but.
No, thank you for that, Cathie. It's something that I've long admired about you, is very similar to the Ray Dalios of the world. You believe in radical transparency. So I love that you talk about what's going on with your firm, and you're very open about it. You publish how you make decisions. Frankly, I'll be the first one to say I wish people in the military did that a little bit more.
Oh, it's helped us tremendously. Give it, as we say, give it. We're the first sharing economy company in the asset management space when it comes to research. And if you don't give, you don't get. So what has happened, more so than I expected, is the people in the field who are doing the innovating want us to be successful. And so if they see, because we tweet out our research not when it's finished, but as it's evolving, if they see that we're making a mistake, they will DM us. They will come back and say, hey, have you considered this? And sometimes we're not making a mistake, we're actually helping them. It works both ways. It's incredible, this open source, to the extent in the military, and I'm not sure how much you could do this, but you can open source and let others battle test your ideas. You know, you're going to be way ahead of the game. And really what it does, if you look at all the models on the buy side, which is our side of the firm, I guarantee you go into any firm, and if you scrutinize it, you find mistakes all over the place. We publish our models, Tesla, Roku, Zoom. We get all these grenades and fireball, like, you're crazy. And it does make us think, wait, did we miss something there? So it's really, really important. Yeah.
Agreed. Sorry, I did that just to give you more time. So I hope you're prepared now.
Yeah, so it's actually a two-part question. So everybody doesn't know this. I mean, I got it, 4 stars. You talk about coming down to earth very quickly. When I was 4-star, I could drive, I fly everywhere in a government plane. It's Gulfstream. Actually got a 737 ride back from Afghanistan. Really a lot of space. I think you were on that plane with us, Michelle. Remember all that space we had? And so then I got back down, and I was now not in Afghanistan. And so I had to take a flight from Tampa to Washington, D.C. And of course, after being gone for 3 years, you have no frequent flyer miles on any airline. And so I make a reservation on American, and I'm going, hey, can I get a seat? And they go, no, you'll get one at the gate. And I go, okay, I'm sure that's going to be a middle seat. And they go, yes, probably. And so I fly up on a middle seat, and I just go, okay, here I am. So I mean, you got to come down to earth very quickly. I'd tell you that. So it's don't think people are that rare. I think the pedestal is more artificial than you think, and it's the people I know the best, that have done the best, get off the pedestal quickly and realize they're not artificial. They're actually real. I'll go a little bit more personal. Of course, there's military failures. I mean, every time you take a casualty, you're second guessing. Your guts are turning, and I don't care whether you're a 4-star, a captain, a major, lieutenant colonel. You feel it. I mean, and it doesn't matter whether it's direct report. I think you told. I don't know. I heard that Jim Moreno's family might be here today. I mean, I remember those reports. I had the Sagitif. It was a Ranger company. It was actually Peter Lazinski was the company commander, whose dad was my battalion XO many years ago. And you're hearing this report coming out of Zari of these casualties that are taking place there. I was in the United States back at a Mogadishu reunion, and your guts are just churning when you're hearing this. And all you want to do is get back there and get to where it is. There's those types of things that always make you question your worth. But here's something maybe a little bit more personal, okay? And we won't get emotional, but we'll just talk about personal. Mimi is sitting here today, all right? I will tell you that over my military career, I let the family slip. And I let it slip because of the fight. I mean, I always thought the fight was more important. It's like you had to keep going, I've always now cautioned people that have kind of sort of followed that model. I said, don't do that. I mean, find some time to be home and be present, because you can make a mistake. And I'll tell you why I'm bringing that up, because any of you, I know I got some military academy graduates here. I had the opportunity right when I came back from Afghanistan to talk to the cadets, first class, the entire first class. And I always tell people, if you're ever going to go talk to West Point cadets, you got to be authentic from the get-go. They will, once you start giving them a canned answer, you're on whatever their little social media thing is, and they're broadcasting it. But you're not somebody of importance to them. If they like you, if they come up and want to drink beer with you afterwards. They go, please come down to the Firsty Club and drink beer with us. But you got to be authentic, and you got to be real. And no kidding, this young lady goes, sir, what was your biggest failure in the military? And I said, my family. How that worked out for my family. And she went, okay. And right then, but they know you're being serious. And I explained to them. I said, you're going to find the pulls on your time, because this military thing is something that it will pull you, and it will require generosity with your time if you're serious about it, that goes beyond what your family ought to have to tolerate. And people will talk about balance all the time, pretty difficult to find. And I've told her that. So I'd say that was it, and that's something that you keep learning, and you hope you become a better person as a result of it. Okay?
Cathie, closing remarks. Anything that you would like to share with the audience that you have not already shared?
Oh, goodness. Let's see. There are many different people in the audience here. I suppose maybe I'll close and say, now this is a function largely of my spiritual life, but I really do believe that that there, for everyone it's different. I would call it the Holy Spirit. Other people would call it the Force. There are different, but there is that voice inside of you, and you need to verify it. But you need to verify it, which means in my book it means yes, pray a little bit over this. Like really, there is that voice, and if it just keeps at you, listen to it. It usually leads to some very good things, like maybe why you were put on earth. Yeah.
Thank you. Sir.
First of all, just thanks to you and to Cathie, by the way.
Thank you.
You're going to tell me thanks, and you don't have to, because this is something I want to do. This is an important thing for me to do. Okay, and I'm serious about that.
Yes,
I know you have to dog me a long time to make sure I'm actually going to show. I'm really going to show up, and but I'm here.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
There's obviously a lot of Afghanistan experience in the room here, and so as I kind of think about how I just like to close here, it did not end like we wanted it to. We all know that, all right? And we'll get a chance to talk about it a little bit afterwards to the men and women from Afghanistan that are now in the United States. So we know that. We know that didn't work out. I purposely, when I left, and my remarks were recorded, and I wanted them to be recorded because they're true, they're authentic. I said, listen, the people of Afghanistan will be on my mind for the rest of my life. And I know that's true. I mean, and it's not, that wasn't just like some guy leaving Afghanistan. And you guys are. I mean, you all are. I mean, I get still in communication with people in Afghanistan as well. So, and I understand, it reversed. What you grew up and what you knew and what you supported, you saw a tremendous reversal there, and nobody's happy about that. But now, back to also the U.S. service members. And there may be somebody, we had a multinational force out there. I don't know if it's if any of them are present or online or anything. Let me just tell you something. People would come up to me and they'd say, wow, you've been in Afghanistan for a long time. And they'd either say, thank you for your service, or I'm sorry you had to do this. I'm sorry, you had to, do this part or that part. And this is something I just want you all to know, that there was, I would have done those 3 years over again, even if I knew the results. And I would have done those 3 years over again because of you guys. And what I really strive for as I watch our veteran population and the Afghans as well, not to have a victim mentality, because, you did your part. You really did your part. And I think that's important. And like I said, I'd go back and try to do it again. It may not have ended much differently. We may have come to the same point, but I would do that because of the Afghan people, and I would do that because of the people I had the opportunity to serve with. So thank you.
All right, Cathie, thank you so much.
Oh, my
I
pleasure.
have admired you from afar for a very long time.
Thank you.
So on a personal and professional level, it's been a treat to be able to share a stage with you. I ordered you a gift on behalf of Promote, Hurricane Ian, and supply chain shortages. I know you're a person of faith. God was not on my side when it came to getting this gift to you. So, Cathie, I will share with you this card. The picture of what we ordered for you is inside. What this innovation, right? This is my way of doing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And sir, same for you.
There's a picture of this?
There is a picture. What I ordered for you, Cathie, was a leather-bound version of the 4 Gospels, because I know you are a woman of deep faith.
Thank you.
And then, sir, what we ordered for you through Promote, Ashley and I chose the Declaration of Independence because you fought for so many people's freedoms. And we hope that you will put that on your wall.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
I love your picking up that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great to see you. Are we done here?
Yes.
We're done here, yes. He's ready to drop the mic and get out of here quickly.
No, but I will take the mic off.
All right, so continue to enjoy your time here at the Military Women's Memorial. Thank you all.